The first one that comes to mind is our current work with Alibaba. So we've been working with Alibaba for the past year, wanting to solve a very large problem of indexation loss and traffic loss.
On this episode, I'm joined by Nik Ranger. Nik is currently a senior SEO consultant for Dejan Marketing. She's previously held the role as senior technical SEO lead at Studio Hawk, has a background in mathematics and civil engineering, and tinkers about with machine learning. Enjoy today's episode. I really want to know about you. How did you end up in this role? Dejan's pedigree is definitely very impressive. And I love the fact that you guys are deciding on whether you should be branded as AI or marketing, because you're very much in the AI space as well with everything that you shipped. But what I'm really curious to know is, how did you personally realize that you wanted to be an SEO, and what kind of skills did you acquire along the way to help you in your current role?
It's an interesting question. And I really love that SEO in the search space. This career has forged so many wonderful people from all walks of life. You don't have to be technical. You don't need to have an engineering or a mathematic background. I think the thinking and execution can come from anyone, and there are so many wonderful people who have been creatives, artists, musicians. I'm also a musician as well, and I also painted the thing behind me that you see in the video, if you're watching.
It's beautiful.
Thank you. There are so many people that find SEO by pure happenstance, and I'm even thinking of Dr. Marie Haynes, who was formerly a veterinarian, who's a wonderful individual who has just a passion for asking questions and using curiosity as your day-to-day guide to solve problems and to look at architectural issues with sites and think about how they're going to be robust for being parsed and understood by mechanistic interpretation. I think really it's just curiosity, grit, and persistence and consistency of that persistence that I think makes an amazing SEO. So I think that the one tool that I have is persistence. I wouldn't consider myself to be the most intelligent individual all the time, but I am someone who just sticks with it until I figure it out. And I think that if you are looking to get into SEO or wanting to sort of really challenge yourself and push yourself to get more experience, I would definitely recommend to look at being a part of an agency culture that provides the experience and different web architectures to understand. You'll see and you'll experience a lot more. So your learning curve will be a lot steeper than you may have if you're working in-house. But also if you're working in-house, I think you are able to understand one architecture incredibly well, a lot deeper than most can be able to really grasp from external perspectives. I think as long as you really got the tools within your personality, I think you can go so far. This career, this industry, the people that I work with have completely transformed my life. So I'm exceptionally grateful.
Oh, that's heartwarming. Dejan, you're doing justice for them in the way that you've pitched them, and also to show how they really brought value to your life. I'm really curious to know, how does your day-to-day look like? Because Dejan is essentially an agency and did specialize in SEO. And I know that over time that has moved more towards specializing in AI for the call, because you guys are essentially being called to prepare yourselves, right, for the future. Mm-hmm. But I would like to know, how is the time split between tasks that involve AI versus tasks that involve SEO for the clients that you have in your roster? Or do you sort of now just work on creating the models, refining the models, and shipping out the tool for the clients in your roster?
I really like that question, but I think a lot of the time when people are thinking about the AI landscape, they're thinking about it in terms of competition. Like that if you're working on an audit for a client or you're working on this, it's really by project basis where they really must be separate. So I feel like a lot of people think it as like, is it a threat? Is it an opportunity? But I see it as a moment of profound validation and clarity. It's validation because AI isn't killing SEO. It's validating and and it's elevating the most technical aspects. So for years as a technical SEO, we've been the advocates, sometimes the lone voices in the room, for the critical importance of structured data, clean site architecture, robust rendering strategies like server-side rendering, and strict canonicalization. So for a long time, we were often seen as, the best practices that could be deprioritized in order of more visible marketing efforts like PPC, or something we could be able to measure a lot more cohesively, like how many briefs are we getting, how many links are we getting? We can be able to number those versus maybe like, how many tickets are we getting done and what is the net impact of that? Now in an AI driven world where a machine is the primary consumer of our content, they are non-negotiable prerequisites. The AI's retrieval augmented generation, or RAG, as a lot of people refer it to, process is a computational system operating on a budget. It, like very much like a search engine with crawl budget, it doesn't have the patience to navigate a messy site or wait for a slow client-side rendered page. In fact, it only really renders the initial HTML. And this is what we've been able to prove time and time again. So if an AI agent can't officially crawl, render, and parse your content, you are functionally invisible. All the foundational work we've been championing is now the bedrock of AI visibility. So yeah, but more importantly, I think it brings clarity. Like old school rank tracking was always super noisy. It was like an indirect proxy for what Google thought about a site. We were observing the shadows of a cave wall, the correlations between our actions and the final SERP. We can't really interrogate the system itself. But I think now with this new landscape, like that's now changing. I think with a process like citation mining, something that Dan's more recently developed, like we can move beyond simply just observing the final AI answer and start deconstructing the inputs the model used to create it. Because that process allows us to systematically probe an AI model like Gemini and ChatGPT with a set of strategic prompts related to our client's core entities. So we are able to harvest those outputs at scale and not just see the final text, but also to extract the specific URLs the model chose as its grounding sources or citations. And that gives us a direct data-driven answer to the question for this topic: which domains does the AI trust right now? So that's a real paradigm shift. We're no longer guessing which backlinks are valuable based on proxy metrics like domain authority, or using Majestic like citation flow and trust. Like we have a list of domains that are empirically proven to be influential sources for the AI. So that data set becomes a foundation for a hyper-targeted digital PR and link building campaign. I know I started talking about technical SEO, but because I started to talk about, things that can be bean counted, I wanted to talk a little bit more about link building. But I think in essence, like we're moving from a world of correlation to a world of direct system level analysis. It's a powerful shift that elevates the discipline from a tactical art to more of like a strategic science.
Wow, so much to unpack there. I'd love to ask if you have any use cases that you can share for the clients that you have. I understand if you can't, maybe you have an NDA, so you can't explicitly share the name of the company, but maybe you could share a use case of a client that you recently have that you have helped them with this bedrock technical SEO that you guys advocate for and have perfected, that you said have possibly been underloved pre-AI era, along with coupling it with all the other new fancy tools that you guys have come up with, because you were saying Dan puts an emphasis on citation mining. So there are lots of like words thrown here that, if we don't have the technical know-how, or, can be a bit overwhelmed with what's going on in the industry. It'll be interesting if you could break that down in a use case example for a client that you have, so that we can see how this works IRL in real life.
Yeah, 100%. I'm just trying to think of a client that I can be able to give like a direct answer for. The first one that comes to mind is our current work with Alibaba. So we've been working with Alibaba for the past year, wanting to solve a very large problem of indexation loss and traffic loss. So since November of 2024, I want to say, they have lost about 1.13 billion pages out of their index. So that is what I'm feel comfortable to say. What I won't say is like the net impact of that from a monetary sense, but that is a considerable amount. So, the core challenge there is really to work backwards and figure out the common root of those problems, and in the way that's really hampered on. we've there are so many things that we've done. I don't know, the things that like I've been really working on is looking at the use of client-side rendered elements to be able to inform some of the most important strategic aspects. So like within their core navigation, their internal links pointing from one page to another, their core content modules, their use of their international strategy, their use of linking externally versus internally to be able to create meaningful silos. And a lot of this work really, when you sort of like, step back from this very large Jackson Pollock of ideas, the core problem is that there's so many different teams that are responsible for different departments that govern the homepage, that govern their main PLPs and PDPs, and all of these other pages that are disallowed or as subdomains that have a stronger internal business voice to be able to add those types of pages into their main architecture versus the ones that they're actually measured upon. So because of that, it's like dancing with shackles. And we're really wanting to start to acknowledge like the core challenges with that and start to look at like the wasted crawl budget, where Google's resources are spent crawling millions of redundant, low-quality pages, looking at those diluted site quality signals where the sheer volume of similar pages sends confusing signals to search engines about which page is the most authoritative, and having to suppress organic visibility, where keyword cannibalization is forcing their own pages to compete against one another, preventing a single page from achieving its full ranking potential. And even today, on the 20th of November this year, 2025, Dan posted like a new LinkedIn post about quite literally going through 100 million keywords in their database to process that entire keyword database. So we've been working together to try and figure out like what are the common issues, because at the core of it, they have a logic issue. Before I talk more about that, if anyone's listening to this and being like, how does this relate to AI? How does this relate to what the core reason that I tuned into the podcast? Like I said earlier, if you're not being able to place your most important key assets in the initial HTML, so server-side rendered, your critical assets, you will not be found by an AI model. So that's why a lot of folks like Dan and Lily and later and myself included, some wonderful people in the industry are saying like, hey, GEO is not a thing. It's still SEO. This is why. The fundamental reason that we are still doing things that I think people relate to like traditional SEO audits and thinking is because we have been able to prove that these AI models are respecting things that are being built in HTML. So they're respecting canonicals, they're respecting robots.txt, they're respecting even like things like tags that you're able to place in there, like things that are in HTML that make sense for a search engine. There's a nice little replication. So the argument there is like, if it's good for a search engine, it's good for an AI bot. And that is a primary mechanistic reasoning that we use to be able to go through with intense vigor across all their template pages to be able to audit that. So if there are logic issues in the way that pages are created, well, that's a problem that we're invested to try and solve for them. And if you have any sense of the scale and size of Alibaba, we're talking in billions. And that's why I'm saying like, we've got a framework of 100 million keywords that we're looking at. We've got 200 million PDP pages that we're looking at. And we're trying to reverse engineer this and create our own filters and our own taxonomies that is going to influence the way that their site is going to work at a fundamental level. It's quite literally, we are trying to externally re-engineer Alibaba's entire site, which is really freaking cool. So
yeah. And what
I just want to, I'll just finish on this point. I just want to stress that and I'm maybe saying this for like my younger self, there is no such thing as no. There is no, not right now. So think about that when you're thinking about big problems, really hard to solve problems, it is, if it's not a possibility right now, it may be a possibility in the future. So always go back and always try and use your innate logic that you're refining as a SEO person, and make different arguments and see about how things get done and how things get implemented. So that is really, really helpful to keep that in your toolbox.
So those things don't change. And you can keep going back to them even though the landscape changes. What I'm curious to know is which activities count as, AEO for you that are not already covered by SEO? Because you did say a lot of the foundation and a lot of what people in the industry that you do respect argue that SEO, good, SEO practices set you up for a strong foundation for being cited in these LLMs. But what new activities are important to spend your time on to make sure that these LLMs are giving you your place to shine, like making sure that your company is being mentioned? What new activities have you added to your offering to your clients?
Mm. Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's completely reframing how we define market share. I think the web is no longer just a collection of destinations. It's a pre-trained memory of the world's most influential AI models. So that we're publishing is becoming a potential training data point that forms the AI's foundational understanding. And when you think about the World Wide Web and the internet and data in that sort of sense, it completely shifts, because that means the market share is no longer just about owning a SERP real estate, search and results page real estate. It's about owning the perceptual real estate inside the model itself. So we now talk to clients about their perceptual market share, their share of an AI model's mind, and how much their brand occupies within an AI for a given topic. So we can now measure this directly with our bidirectional probing and AI rank. A competitor might have a more organic traffic today, but if our analysis shows our client has a higher AI rank score for key commercial entities, we know that we're winning the battle for future relevance.
And
For
just,
example,
I'm so sorry, just so that our audience
yeah,
understands, AI Rank is the tool that you guys have created. And I would like you, if you can, to maybe break down how bi-directional probing actually works, because I know you have
yeah,
some great information online on LinkedIn about it, and as well on your blog,
mm,
where you talk about, the difference between mapping from brand to entity to brand. But it would be
yeah,
great if you could explain that to our listeners so they understand, what
yeah, of
bi-directional probing
course.
is and how that links to your tool AI Rank, and why this is all relevant to them.
Yeah, absolutely. To understand AI rank, I think you first have to understand the problem it was built to solve. So the old school method of tracking a handful of arbitrary prompts on a daily basis is fundamentally flawed. It's noisy, it's reactive, and it mistakes the AI's final synthesized answer for the model's underlying perception. So it's like trying to understand a person's entire belief system by only ever asking them one question. We needed to move beyond observing the shadows on the cave wall. We needed a way to be able to interrogate the model's mind directly. And that's what AI rank is. And that's what it's designed to do. It's our methodology for quantifying a brand's perceptual real estate inside the model's mind. So it's not a keyword tracker. It's a brand perception measuring system. The entire process is built on a core principle we call bidirectional probing. So bidirectional probing is a systematic probe the model from two distinct vectors to get a complete picture of the brand's standing. If we have think about it in like bidirectional with the probes, like probe one being like the brand to entity, that's measuring the passive recall. So we ask the model a simple direct question. What are the top concepts you associate with Alibaba? Like, a brand, right? So that's measuring the model's passive recall and its existing pre-trained understanding of what your brand is. It's reviewing the current entity associations in its core memory. And it's wondering, is a brand associated with cheap prices, bulk, wholesale, whatever products? Are these luxury products? Does it also have good customer support? What is the sentiment around that as well? It's telling us their current brand identity looks like from a machine's perspective. So that's like brand to entity. And then the second probe, like in the bidirectional thing, with entity to brand, well, that's measuring the active recommendations. We're just essentially reversing that query to say, well, okay, who are the top brands for, like, the brand's core entity services um or products, that what it's wanting to be known for. So maybe in, what are the top brands for bulk wholesale products, So that is measuring the model's propensity for active recommendation and its perception of the brand's market leadership. So it's one thing for the model to know who you are. It's another for it to recommend you as a solution to a problem. So that is a more valuable commercial signal. And the gap between these two scores is often our major strategic insight. A brand might have really, really high recall, so the model knows who they are. And with Alibaba, it absolutely knows who they are. But a really low recommendation just doesn't see them as a market leader. And actually, this is exactly what we're seeing for them as well. So this is a classic known but not preferred marketing problem that we now can be able to quantify and address. So with that, like, we look at running these probes consistently, often weekly, across multiple models for Gemini and ChatGPT. Because again, Gemini and ChatGPT are powered and inform the top two largest search engines, Google and Bing. And we track the frequency and the rank of the brand's appearance in the responses for both probe types. When I say rank, that is a really helpful way of seeing, well, it's really important as to where the brand has been mentioned in the list that it provides. That's what I mean by rank. So we can then aggregate this data into a single weighted score. So we'll give a higher weighting to the entity to brand score because, as I said, being an active recommendation is a lot more of a powerful signal of authority than simple passive association. So this process transforms a complex, abstract problem of brand perception into a single trackable KPI. So it's a number we can put a graph on and show a client over time, like, hey, this is your perceptual market share. Our job is to make this number go up. And let's, over time, we've got a series of things that we want to test and experiment with to be able to influence that. So yeah, that's the core part of it. Do you want to also know how we use it?
Yeah, that was gonna be my leading question. But before that,
Great.
actually, because this helps, right? Like to kind of summarize your point, like quantifiable results to brand monitoring, because this is something that people in the industry are clearly struggling with, right? And
Mm,
why I feel PR was downplayed a lot, or efforts to rank on different platforms
mm,
to get your brand out there. There was no real way to kind of solidify your efforts. And so with AI rank, if I understand correctly, you are showing that that does in fact have impact, and in numbers that
mm.
C-suite can understand. But yeah, so do you then just use this as a North Star for all your content marketing, any
Mm.
sort of campaigns that you run, to sort of use this to defend to your clients, to management, that hey, we are going in the right direction? Yeah, it would be great to know how you're applying this metric.
Yeah, great question. And I love that you use the phrase North Star because I think you've hit the nail on the head with that phrase right there. Like, AI rank isn't a standalone report. It's a central hub that informs every other part of our AI visibility strategy. So yes, we use it as a diagnostic tool. It really helps us to identify the weak spots where AI rank immediately shows us all the specific entities that a model has a weak or even a negative association with a client's brand, and we use that as like a strategic hit list. It also, like, with if you work with us, and this is not a part of like the free tool part, but we also do competitive benchmarking, so we can be able to heat map you versus your competitors, so that can give us an objective measure of our client standing versus their competitors inside the model's mind. So we can really see who the AI truly considers to be the market leader for any important given topic that we're wanting to know and to measure and to track, which is often different from who has the most organic traffic, which I think is really, really interesting. And then we're wanting to measure the impact of that. So that's kind of like a little feedback loop. So when we run a digital PR campaign, like you said before, like to bolster a weak entity, we can directly measure its success by tracking the change in AI rank scores for that specific entity over the following weeks to months. So how it sort of fits into like the bigger AI visibility play, it's really guiding the things that we use in conjunction with that. So like I've mentioned a few times, like with citation mining, like the weak spots that the entities identified by AI rank, those become the primary targets for our citation mining process. So say, for example, we're really wanting to make uh, if Alibaba was like, yeah, we really want to be known for buying electronics in bulk, and we just kind of like want all electronics. We want to be the main authority for that. We don't just look for any citation opportunities. We specifically look at the domains the AI is already trusting for those exact entities where the client's perception is the weakest, and we can be able to see which sites that it's using to be able to inform that. A lot of the time, there will be competitor sites, and that's not meaningful for us to be able to go through and use. But often, there will be really, really helpful aggregator sites. So, think about your CanStars, think about your product reviews, think about really good authoritative review sites, or even like journalistic sites that are doing like a bit of more of a deep dive. Those are really, really helpful for us to know that the AI model is using that as a source to be able to build its image and its perception of the brand, or even like what it thinks that people want to be able to know and which brands to trust from that. So those are the kinds of sites that we will go through and target and try and leverage to get our clients' brands in those key hot place areas. So if they're not already there. So that's one very practical example. A second example is like it seeds like our query fan out process. So again, Dan's written extensively on this, and query fan out is something that I work with every single week. So conversely, the entities where AI rank shows where the client is already strong, those become like our seed topics for query fan out content strategy. So the query fan out is really, really great. Anyone who doesn't know what that is essentially, and I'll say this quite simply, query fan out is where we're wanting to create synthetic queries and questions out of all the different synapses in the way that a brand could be found for a given topic. So again, if I use like Alibaba as an example, they're wanting to be known for bulk electronics, like wholesale electronics, for example. Well, we'll be able to run our tools through that, and we can see all the different synthetic queries that could possibly be found for. And we have ways to be able to look at the relevance and to map that to their existing search console. And we can then be able to see how much of that ground that they already currently rank for and how much of that ground that they don't. And this is the output that we use to be able to analyze that and pull them out and start to take these and have like whole sections of this that we look to either influence existing content. So adding content that can be able to be best positions for what they don't currently rank for with these synthetic queries, or even create new content. So creating briefs that create really nice comprehensive wrap-ups of a whole topic that we'll be able to strategically place onto this page, and then that sort of like is taking up a lot more real estate. So we use it to identify our areas of strength and then build deep defensible moats of topical authority around them.
Awesome.
So it's our compass.
I love that. It's the backbone of anything that you're shipping out for your clients. Nice. I think I have no
Mm,
follow-up from that because I think you've explained it perfectly and also had like, some great examples. I would love to
mm,
move actually to our rapid fire round where I get your
sure,
AI hot takes. So yeah, if you're ready, we can start.
sure.
First
Let's
question.
do it.
Awesome. What's the strangest slash interesting thing you used an LLM for?
See, I take questions very literally. So I think like when I was doing some early testing, I've downloaded a couple of models on my own personal computer that I built. That's right sitting next to me in my office. And I've started to build basically a task organizer that is looks like a Fallout Pip-Boy.
Follow-up. What?
Yeah, so the concept is kind of simple. if anyone who's played Fallout, the game, a Pip-Boy is essentially like a little monitor, kind of like a wristwatch that it is on your arm. And I've like got like a little Raspberry Pi, and my long-term goal is to be able to have a Raspberry Pi that sits on my arm and will have a display, and it will look exactly like the Pip-Boy in the game, but instead of tasks that you will have from the game, it will have tasks that I need to do for work and for life. As the idea of this was like, I wanted to have all of this locally hosted. And if I'm also putting sensitive things like my own personal information and like my health and things, I'm a little bit of a tinfoil hat person. I wanted all of this to be on a secure, separate hosting that I have full control over. So to answer your question quite literally, I built a task organizer that looks like a Pip-Boy that I will soon have as like a modifiable thing that I will wear on my wrist.
That is
Yeah.
amazing. So you made software and you're looking to have it as hardware as well. And
Yeah.
that, and
Essentially.
if I understand correctly, this is like your personal task maker that you feed in, like you connect it to your calendar and stuff like that and feed it your own health data from.
I don't have it connected to any third-party tools because, again, tinfoil hats.
Okay. So
Um,
it's just whatever you input in, and
yeah,
that's, so if anyone
yeah,
wants to get to you, to know you at your core, that's how they do it.
yeah. They would have to break into my office and steal my
That'd be great.
machine to
Getting a
know
machine.
exactly what's going on with me. But yeah, that's. I
Amazing.
mean, to answer your question quite
Love
literally, I think
that.
that's a very
It's
unusual
super,
way of using an LLM.
honestly an impressive way. What's your favorite LLM?
It really changes. I have been recently, as of quite literally today, been testing out Gemini's Pro Model 3 that they've just recently released. And I'm very, very happy with the answer engine and the quality of the results. I literally started testing it today, but I feel like this is going to be a new favorite. I really love 2.5. 2.5 I think is probably the most impressive for synthesizing a lot of different information and having an acumen that doesn't just take your prompt and give you something quite literal to your prompt. It doesn't just answer the question exactly in the way that you are asking for it. It will have some pushback. So I have respect for the model and it with the pushback. And I kind of like sometimes like to see where it will consistently push back and see where it will have some leniency. But I like that there's a mechanistic element of Gemini's models that still have like its own North Star that it will respect above yours. And I think that's pretty cool.
Nice that they're not just going to give you an answer at any means. There is a respectable cutoff. Like, is that what you mean by the North Star?
Yeah, like sometimes like you will adamantly argue like, no, I am right and this is incorrect. And it will be like, I see what you're saying, but
Respectfully disagree.
there is some problems with your logic for these reasons. And I've very much enjoyed testing these to see how much it can sort of like whether it will agree with my untruths or whether it will push back. And yeah, I mean, ChatGPT is just a like an echo chamber of yes men. So it's quite nice to see like this in a model that's available and free.
Well, we'll leave it at that. You should actually really invest in your foundation. And also, if you're doing a migration, hire the right people. Like this whole episode was essentially a love letter to technical SEOs out there to do the hard work, to be more technically sound. I love the fact that you are saying you are very much the liaison between the dev team and the
Mm.
marketing team, two very important parts of a business, an online business. And to take that role very seriously and to have grit and fix things if they're broken. Instead of I love the analogy of building on top of a house that already has very problematic architecture or like a problematic
Mm.
foundation, and you're just sort of patching what's wrong. Sometimes you just need to maybe bulldoze and rebuild, and it takes more time, but it'll help you in the future. I would like to end this episode with one last question. Please give me one word to describe the future of SEO.
Exciting.
Nice. Awesome. Thank you so much, Nick. Is there
Got to be
anything?
positive.
Yeah, optimistic. It sounds like you're on the right path. So for you, it's you're riding this wave. You're not letting the current take you another direction or get overwhelmed. It sounds very much that you're having fun like surfing this new wave and preparing for it. Yeah, would you like to plug anything? Let the people know where they can find you, keep in touch
Mm.
with your insights, your projections for the future, and also to learn because we touched on a lot of technical concepts. So I think it'll be really beneficial for people to know how they can find, more graphs, breakdowns
Mm.
of what you spoke about. Yeah, please plug yourself.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I just want to say that I have really reduced the amount of posts that I've been putting out, and I'm aware of this. I acknowledge this, but doing this work, it takes so much of my time, and I would rather be doing the work sometimes than talking about it. But I would highly recommend people to find and follow Dan Petrovich because he is consistently posting and sharing the work that we're doing. And if you want to find me, I run SEO Collective Australia. So we operate in 3 different states. We have 4,200 members Australia wide. And every month I host with my wonderful best friend, Peter Machinkovich, who is another amazing technical SEO and just recently won the Global Search Award for his work with his company, Easy Go Gaming. Uh, is a part of the stake. And he is a wonderful co-host with me. And we are every month we'll run a free meetup event. And if you follow us on Eventbrite, we have a next meetup in December. I think it's going to be on the Monday, the 1st of December, where we're hopefully going to have Dan Petrovich come down to Melbourne and to share his insights with everyone. And we also are always open and very inviting and want to have as many of these wonderful voices within our community to share their insights. But Peter and I, we always do the news and we always have like a really interesting, helpful commentary on the algorithm changes and updates. So if you're wanting to get some real time information and ask me anything, this is probably the best time to be able to find me and to ask these questions. So yeah, and it's free, and we have food and drinks that are all free for people. So yeah, thank you so much for allowing me to share that with your audience.
Awesome. No problem, Nick. It was lovely having you.